Any audio?
Can you guys hear it? Let us know if you can hear it. If the audio's on and all that good. Yep, there we go. All right, here it comes.
All right, we're live.
I probably have to turn my volume.
Can you guys hear it?
Let us know. All right.
All right. Here we are. Sailing on Keel Dragger, YouTube channel Keel Dragger. If you found me here, and I'm here with...
I'm Andy with Sailing Soleil. I've got a Catalina 30, and just here as crew on this passage with Mark.
So we're doing a little bit of experiment. We're gonna do a kind of a series where we're gonna alternate and co-host monthly the Best Coast Captain's Hour. Basically, what we want to do is set up a little bit of chat and have fun with other sailors from the West Coast, either present or past, representing the West Coast. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about our adventures coming down the coast of Mexico and Baja California. So that's kind of the plan. We're just going to kind of keep it loose. We're going to be looking at the chats. We'd love to, and through this we want to get your questions. So jump into the chats. Make sure that you're clicking on the like button for the video. And if you haven't subscribe to Sailing Soleil and Keel Dragger both, because we're going to alternate this series on both of our channels.
So we've got Peoria, Illinois in the house right now. Who's that? Little Green Man. Not sure what
That's
your name
Peoria.
is.
That's Eric. Hey, Eric.
All right. And what else? Who else we got?
We've got James from Java in Indonesia.
Nice.
Barbara from Illinois. I think I know who that is. Ruben representing San Pedro.
Oh, this is better here. We can see it.
Joe, Eddie representing Dana Point. Sailing Blue Away representing Marina Del Rey, California. David representing San Pedro.
Riff Raff. Flight level 0.
Scott Woolley in Newport.
Nice. Thanks for joining us, everybody. That's cool.
Fire G-Man Shenanigans in Long Beach. So thanks for joining us, everyone. So where do you want to start? You want to talk a little bit about the...
First things first, it's Captain's Hour. Let's cheers. Cheers to you guys. Not sure what you're drinking. If you have a drink. If not, cheers.
One of the most important parts of this whole mission here. So what is this, Andy?
Bacardi Carta Blanca, and we thought it was pineapple juice, but it came out green, so it still tastes good. So that's what we got.
So why don't we just talk a little bit about the adventure, and at least I'll start. A couple of months ago, I retired from big tech and decided to sail a big loop on the Pacific this next year ish, and starting with the coast of Mexico down to at least as far south as La Cruz de Guanacaste, Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Spend a couple of months or so, 3 months down in Mexico, and then in beginning of spring sail to French Polynesia, starting with the Marquesas, the Tuamotus, then the Society Islands, and then after that it's a little bit loose. I'd like to try and get home, or at least go somewhere where I can put the boat where I can come home for a little bit, just to get back and stay connected to family, and of course my sponsor for this whole series, the Admiral, my wife, who is supporting and putting up with all of my shenanigans.
Yeah, so when he announced that he was going to do this adventure, I immediately asked, if I could jump on board with him. I originally had plans that I wanted to go to French Polynesia with him, but timing's not going to work out for that yet, unless I can twist his arm, but we'll see. So I was able to make things happen with work and everything and join him on this trip. So I'll be here for a couple of weeks. Was going to go home today, but I'm having too much fun out here sailing, so I decided I wanted to come make the final leg over to Puerto Vallarta, which is going to add another 290 nautical miles to the trip for me. So that's going to be cool.
So should we talk a little bit about where we are, where we've been? Maybe I can start and pull up the chart here.
Okay.
If you can see the chart, this is the coast of Baja California.
Cheers, Ed.
So we've we've sailed from Ensenada all the way down to we're at the tip of Los Cabos, in Cabo San Lucas. We started on Saturday.
It was the 29th of November.
Saturday the 29th of November.
So Mark told me that I had to be at his house in Oceanside at 6 a.m. and then we drove to Tijuana. Mark's lovely wife.
How did we drive to? Yeah,
Mark's
Debbie,
lovely wife.
Thank you very much.
Mark's lovely wife drove us to Tijuana. We walked across the border, took the ABC bus down to Ensenada and to Baja Naval, and then there's a few little boat projects to do there. And he had some things to finalize with Baja Naval, and then they splashed the boat. Is it easy enough to switch to show the splash of the boat?
No, the pictures are not going to come out.
All right, no worries. So that was the very, very beginning of the trip.
And then so that was the beginning of the trip. Now initially I was planning on taking like a month to get to Puerto Vallarta, and through some intense negotiations between Andy and myself, it's I think we figured out that we could get down here, to Puerto Vallarta within a couple of weeks or so, which is the window of time that kind of Andy had. So we definitely made a push to get down here.
Yeah.
And actually,
if you know how Mark sails, he likes to touch and go, and I'm okay with that too because I get the lay of the land. We'll go somewhere. We'll check it out. We don't linger too long, which, if I had all the time in the world, I would have loved to stay at some of these places a few days longer, but we see it and we get on to the next one. So the first was what? Cedros? I'll let you get to that. Go ahead.
Cedros, but sailing sucks. Yeah. At times it does, and actually we'll talk a little bit about
Boise in the house.
What went well, what didn't go well, or what we loved and what we didn't love. But yeah, so we made a push down here, and actually we've been in here in Cabos for a couple of days now, and part of what's driving that is we had some northerlies coming down the Sea of Cortez, and the next the next jump that we do across the sea is we want decent weather because we got beat up on a couple of these passages, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Hey, Sailing Tritea, thanks, we appreciate it.
Wow, thanks. That's cool. You got paid. You got paid.
Yeah, so we've been waiting here, and it actually turned out well. And I'll just I'll jump in on a little bit out of order here on our destinations, but I was thinking of Cabos as more of a Vegas on the water, and really just wanted to fuel up and keep moving. And it's actually turned out to be super cool that we were able to hang out here for a couple of days. It's exceeded my expectations. My expectations were pretty low because I knew it was going to be kind of a Vegas Disneyland situation here, but we've been having a blast.
Yeah, Mark told me that he had been to Cabo once or twice before, but both only from the water.
Only once, and only from the fuel dock.
And so he never got off the boat. And I've been here a couple times on vacations, and I know it's not, the normal cruisers, it's really busy, but I really like Cabo San Lucas. There's a lot here. There's resources for everything. We had 3 chandleries that we could go to get stuff that we needed to, and pretty much got everything we needed. We'll get to that, but it's been fun. Yes, it is a circus a little bit, especially when the when the cruise ships pull in. And yesterday we took a dip in the water, and we literally had to stay right next to the boat because all of the jet skis were around like kids on a motorcycle. So we were swimming right around the boat within 5 feet. Otherwise, we would have got killed. But it's, other than that, like when the cruise ships are here and it's really crazy in the middle of the day, it's pretty nice. It's pretty cool. It's beautiful scenery, and the weather's been really great. The best weather yet that we've had on the trip. And I like all the people, because it's not every stop that you're going to have a lot of people. Most of the stops that we've had have been really remote, and I love that too. But here it's just kind of cool to be able to have the option to go, hang out if you wanted to. So we're seeing a little error here or something. I'm not sure what.
We might be getting a little jitter, so I apologize if it's cutting out on everyone. We're kind of doing our best with Starlink to keep a connection going. So let's kind of start with. So I'll start with.
What is Andy wearing on his head? It's a hat. It's just not a captain's hat. It's a crew hat.
So I'll just talk quickly about where I started, and then we'll talk about Ensenada. But I started in San Pedro, California, to Catalina Harbor on Catalina Island. Did that solo. Stayed there for a couple days or so, and then I sailed solo down to Ensenada, which is about 140 miles. And then the boat was in Ensenada for almost a month.
The stream is not shirtless.
So the boat was in Ensenada for almost a month. I had a haul out scheduled, plus I went back to Illinois to visit family and all of that. And then when Andy jumped on, it was really for the big trip. Andy, you want to talk a little bit about the first leg from Ensenada to Isla Cedros?
Okay, so what time did we leave? About 2 p.m. in the afternoon. We went to the fuel dock at Marina Corral, fueled up, headed out immediately, motor sailed a little bit, and then we had 2 days of pretty good sailing, and the seas were pretty short period. It was really uncomfortable. It was that downwind sailing where the boat's just rocking and rocking. So, but keel draggers are really, we had a double reefed main for most of that passage, and we're still doing an average. I think the average on that leg was 5.8 knots. Something like that.
Yeah, and that included the stop in Marina Corral. So we were between 5.5 and 6 with double reefed main.
What was the length on that one?
That was 260 nautical miles. And the winds, as soon as they picked up, they averaged 22 to 25 knots pretty consistently for 2 days, and the waves were about 2 meter waves.
At least 2 meters. It was one of those moments where you're sailing at night, and I had never really sailed through the night until I had sailed with Mark probably a year or two ago when we came back from Ensenada up to Long Beach. He had his boat there, and we were getting stuff, and we went back. So I've only done night passages with Mark. And but this night going to Cedros, it was, you could hear the waves crashing behind you. They're rolling, and you can hear the whitewash kind of creeping up on it. And it's one of those moments where it's a little frightening, but the boat can handle more than we can actually, and you'd rather not see it. So it's kind of nice that it was dark in those conditions, and just we've been doing 3-hour shifts, so. Mark got this device where it
the aqua alarm.
The aqua alarm too. Every 20 minutes you have to press the button, otherwise a loud beep goes off. So it keeps you alert, and it sounds annoying on a passage, but in a sense it almost makes the passage go faster because 3 times you press the button and that's an hour, and if you have 3 hours, it just makes it go a little bit faster. And you kind of just take it in these 20-minute increments. But as far as the sailing conditions, it was a little uncomfortable. But as things calmed down and we approached Cedros, I was really getting those cruising vibes. We started seeing, bait balls of fish boiling, and the island, land ho.
This little lobster or whatever those.
Right when we got to the island, we motored through this cloud of red, creatures, and we saw that they were either baby lobster or something, but it was literally an entire cloud. At that moment, I was a little worried that nothing went, because we were motoring. I was hoping that nothing went in the impeller, that went into the engine, but everything was all good. But really cool for me, and starting to really feel those cruising vibes at that time. Pulling up into an island 200 and something nautical miles away from Ensenada. So a little uncomfortable, but super fun and exhilarating. So that, coming from a new sailor who's hasn't done anything like this, it's one of those moments. It was a pretty big checkbox for me.
So, Cedros is it's a salt. The island is mostly community supporting a huge salt mine on the island, and it's got a pretty cool vibe. So there's a little harbor with some breakwaters
Super
around
small.
it. Now, talk a little bit about coming into the harbor and what we experienced there.
Okay, so we come into the harbor, and there's a couple boats in there. Immediately, someone hailed Mark, Keeldragger, and he's like, I'm right here, and it was the boat right next to us, and he said, you can anchor right here. If I need to move, everybody's super friendly. If I need to move to make room for you, we will.
What was their boat name?
SV Reefer. we're like, dude, you're just asking for it in Mexico. But so SV Reefer, he told us, you'd probably be good right where you're at. So we dropped the hook. We're standing anchor watch, and we just kept hearing something super weird. We really can't explain it, honestly. We just kept hearing something as if something was dragging across the chain. And so we kind of just, turned a blind eye to it, because we're looking around and nobody was on deck. Nobody was hauling up their anchors. Nobody was doing anything, but we still kept hearing this loud noise with the anchor chain. So just as we were about to leave the boat, I walked up to the bow to take a photo or something, and I saw the anchor chain literally moving. And I'm like, Mark, I can't explain what's happening. So at that moment, we decided we're just going to haul up the anchor. We got out of the harbor, which is only a quarter mile away around the breakwater, and it was a super chill anchorage there. We anchored there, and then as we were anchoring there, another boat was coming in that was on the SV Swift, and so we ended up kind of introducing ourselves to those guys. We all got off the boat, went to got in our dinghies together. They did, we did. We went up to the port captain's office and hung out with those guys. They were super cool, and had dinner with them. And it was another one of those really cool moments where you're meeting other cruisers that are doing the same thing that you're doing. And everybody's kind of sharing the same experience. Is really, really awesome. Back to you.
Thank Breaking for the beer.
Oh, nice. Cheers. Cheers. Right on.
So we had a pretty chill anchorage. SV Swift, the guys we met there were super cool. They hooked us up with this huge bag of tuna that they caught.
That was good fish.
And it was amazing.
They said they caught 100-pound tuna and 2 50-pounders and something else, and they were like, we were just cutting off the best fillets of the fish. Wow, someone else, you're pulling in the ends. But they were good fishermen, and they caught tons of fish. So they gave us a big bag of tuna that came in clutch for us, and we cooked it up, and it was delicious. So Gibson, thank you very much. If you ever see this, that was delicious fish.
Thanks. It's cut off sailing.
Yeah, the name isn't there. Wow, thanks. That's
Thank
pretty
you.
cool. That's awesome.
So we found this little restaurant.
Your beard's looking glorious, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we found this. So we asked this guy that wanted to practice speaking English to us while we were practicing Spanish. Asked him where to go eat, and he directed us to a little restaurant.
Well, first they said go to this little like roadside stand. So we went to the roadside stand, and the guy said come back in 30 minutes, and we're not going to stand around for 30 minutes. And so then that guy told us, well, just keep going. The guy at that stand told us like, okay, if you go down, there's another restaurant. We went down, and this restaurant had mega delicious food. What's going on? No. But anyways, we sat with SV Swift. It was 4 of them and 2 of us. Shared a couple beers, and before we went to the restaurant, they didn't have any beer, and there was a little liquor store across the street that all they sold, the entire store, was Tecate. So you can get either Tecate or Tecate Light. And that was it. So we grabbed a 6-pack of Tecate. went in and had dinner with the SV Swift crew, and that was delicious.
So the next day we started out in super chill conditions. Not a lot of wind. We're motoring. We put up the we put up the main. I think we were motor sailing.
We were motor sailing.
But it was really just motoring. There wasn't hardly any wind. There's a little bit of a current.
So and we're dodging pots, and
we're dodging lobster pots, and then the unthinkable happens.
We're sitting there chilling in the cockpit, and it was a horrible sound. And Mark was really quick to bring down the RPMs on the engine, but we were sitting there, and we were keeping an eye out, but it was either submerged or something, because in Cedros, what they do with the lobster pots is they tie strings of them. So when you see a pot, it's not just a float with a string going straight down, a line going down holding it. It's a string of them, so it's actually on the surface. The line is on the surface, which is super dangerous for us. And so anyways, we caught that line, and you could hear it hitting the hull. We heard it wrap up, and Mark powered down immediately.
We figured out pretty quickly what it was.
Yeah, we knew immediately what it was, and it was kind of that moment where you've seen it happen to other people on YouTube where we've got something caught in our prop, and it's one of those things where you kind of never think it's going to happen to you, but it happened to us at the moment. And I was like, man, all right, it was just our turn for it to happen. And so I was like, all right, this is it. I guess I got to get down there and unwrap it. Luckily it wasn't too bad. So Mark lashed a GoPro down there onto the boat hook, and we first took a look at it and scrubbed through the footage and saw what that it wasn't too bad. It was there, but we could at least see that it was manageable. So I put on fins and a snorkel mask and dove in the water, and I kind of started hyperventilating because just the shock of what was happening, as well as the water was really cold.
There was about a knot of current.
And so obviously I tied something up to myself so that I wouldn't drift away from the boat. Went down there and undid a few wraps, came back up, and then when I went back, the current had pulled the rest of the wraps, because it was loose enough at that time that the current had pulled the rest of the wraps, and it let loose. And
no damage, didn't have to cut the line, and then we were free.
Yeah, I was a little worried. I was like, put on, rev up the RPMs, go, let's hear all the different conditions of the motor and make sure that the prop shaft wasn't bent or nothing had happened, and kill dragger's rock solid, so nothing happened, and we were good on that. So then we started motoring a little bit more, and then Mark was like, you know what, screw this, we're not going to motor. Let's, because we also started seeing more of those, and we're zigzagging through them all. And it's like, instead of sitting there motoring through them and trying to avoid it again, turn off the engine. The winds were coming up, and then we sailed through it. That way, at least the prop wasn't spinning, and we got out of there.
Then we sailed down. It was wasn't that far to.
From there, it was like
Bahia Tortugas,
40 nautical miles, something like that. It was
or less. Yeah, it wasn't
around
there.
Around there, less than 40. But a long day sail. But we got to Bahia Tortugas, and then we had our own little captain's hour that night to try to.
Yeah, we celebrated our success of getting off that lobster pot. But it was. I wanted to get there before it got dark, and we dropped the hook right at sunset.
Yeah,
worked out perfectly.
Yeah, we tied it off that night. That was fun. First time I had tied one off with Mark.
No hangover the next day.
Yeah, I'm sold on that white rum that you had.
So Bahia Tortugas, Turtle Bay. What's the highlight there?
And there was honestly, it was walking around town, just being in that the cruiser's vibe of being in a new, fresh anchorage, and beautiful sunsets there. The other cruisers that were there. What was your highlight?
The second lunch.
The second lunch. Mark, so we're walking around town, and Mark, I was hungry. I'm like, let's just go to the first place that we see. We see this very brightly painted, if you see my Instagram post, very brightly painted restaurant. And Mark made it clear to me, he's like, maybe the brightest painted building isn't the best place. We sat down and had some lunch there, and the fish was just way too fishy. So we asked if we kindly asked nicely, oh, can we get our food to go, put it in a box, walked down the street and tossed it, and went to another place that Mark had a
El Morocco was
much
solid.
better. Yeah, that was solid.
It's got some A lot of historical artifacts. John Wayne used to frequent the place. There's some pictures of John Wayne there. Pretty cool place. And then we picked up 20 gallons of diesel, which was kind of interesting as well.
It was cool. They came up to us and asked us, in the morning. It almost seemed like a father-son operation, kind of similar. It was like an old guy and a young guy on the Ponga, and they came up and we negotiated how much fuel we were going to take on. They took our jerry cans and went to the fuel, brought it back, and we sat there. We had to use 2 of theirs as well. Then we fueled up and did our thing.
And we didn't launch our dinghy, so we got to ride on the Ponga to
shore.
Pier.
That pier. The pier has no railings. It's completely covered in bird crap, and the boards for each, I'm walking next to Mark, and he's like, can you please not walk on the same boards that I'm on? It was pretty bad. So I'm like trailing behind him, and we're like watching every step to make sure we don't fall through a hole. And the rusty ladders that you're climbing up and down to get in and out of the Ponga as well. This entire pier is made with like steel pilings, and they're not stainless steel pilings. It's just steel in the salt water. So every one of them were rusted out, and the ladder to get up off of the Ponga went into the water, and you get up on it, and I jumped on the ladder at the same time, and Mark's like, can you not be on the ladder with me at the same time? I'm like, so anyways, then we got to shore, walked around town. Since we had tied one off the night before, we got ourselves an electrolyte. But I wasn't feeling bad. Mark said he wasn't feeling bad. It's more of a precaution, was more of like a precautionary thing. And then had those 2 lunches and went back and got some rest and prepared for the next leg.
So we left Bahia Tortugas the second day, or the day after we arrived, to Bahia Santa Maria, which is getting down towards the lower third of Cabo. 246 nautical miles, and this was not as windy. It was 18 to 22 knots, but still like a really short wave period. And the seas were more confused. So the waves weren't bigger, but I mean, we just got our asses kicked. I mean, we both got a little seasickness, turned a little green. We weren't, nobody lost their lunch or anything like that. But
it's one of those things where if you're on a boat, if you haven't experienced it, once you start feeling seasick a little bit, and it was just kind of like you're on the edge of it. I wasn't feeling like I was going to throw up or anything, but once you start feeling that, it's really, really hard to shake it, especially when the boat is continuing that motion. And again, it was still mostly downwind sailing, so the boat's doing this as you're sailing for 2 days, and taking these 3-hour watches. You get a little fatigued. On the, right as you're sleeping for 3 hours, because you have some things to do after your watch. You gotta do a couple things. You might need a shower or whatever, and then right as you feel like you're really getting into a deep sleep, your alarm goes off and you have to do your watch again. So it's those longer passages, and I'm sure someone like James, doing, I don't know how you do those solo sails, for weeks. It's incredible, but it's tough.
So we're going to go back through the questions as we kind of get to the end here, because we're getting a bunch of them. We're not keeping up, but yeah, we'll go back through and we'll start answering questions. Bahia Santa Maria, so it's just kind of on the northeast side across. There's some land between that and the kind of the north side of Magdalena Bay, where a lot of the gray whales give birth and everything like that. But Bahia Santa Maria it's a great anchorage. You could anchor 1,000 boats there easily. It's huge. It's
massive and all good, probably good holding miles. And then we got a message from our buddy Tim, fish name 6 on Instagram, James's buddy, and he messaged me and he said, you got to go into the mangroves, and you got to go through the break. There's a beach break, and you can hear it all night, and we're thinking, I don't know if we're going to take the dinghy through the break. What?
But this was after I told Andy, this is just a touch and go. We're just gonna anchor over for a rest stop, and then we're gonna haul ass and head down straight to Los Cabos after that.
And I'm like, this is the only chance I get. You have all the time in the world, but I want to have. We're here. When is the next time we're going to come back? So let's do something. Let's go see something. And it turned out to be the best decision we made, because as we were going through, we made it past the breakwater and the dinghy. It wasn't as bad, or it wasn't a breakwater, it was breaking waves, but it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. We finally get back there, and we're trailing through the mangroves. We had to, at one point, it got really shallow, had to get out and walk. So we're walking, and then we see there's these like patches, and you see some stingrays kind of coming out of them. So we started dragging our feet as we're walking. We didn't want to get stung. Then it got deep enough again to get back in the dinghy, and we're going through the mangroves, and we see these tiny little archaic fishing villages that with people, and they had pongas just beached, and their families were there. Their only source of power was, like one solar panel on top of their very, rickety made, living. But there's also, I was thinking about it as like, there's something to be said about that way of life where, they're not paying any rent, they're not doing anything. It's just really, really awesome the way they were living, and they're out there making a living fishing. So
we saw a couple of kids there, and I felt like I wish we would have brought something.
Yeah, Mark has his beard, and he had a Santa hat on the boat, and he's like, man, I really, really wish I could have brought the Santa hat to say hi to the kids, because when we were going by, the kids were just like, hey, hi, how's it going? Or they were just waving. They were just really happy to see us, and we were probably just as happy to see them. So we had a little error a minute ago. I'm not sure if everything's good, but looks like it is.
So so we had a great rest stop in Bahia Santa Maria, and then we made the final push here to Cabo San Lucas. So that was 183 nautical miles, mostly motor sailing. I think the main thing there is, as you're kind of rounding the Cape and Cabo Falso, you can get really super strong winds. There's kind of a compression zone there. So we took that path a lot closer to the coast as we rounded now, because of the time that we left and how we paced things, it just worked out that it was a nighttime arrival, which is something I never want to do, even in a familiar port, let alone in an unfamiliar port in a foreign country. Now, we did, I have been here before just once, into the fuel dock, and that's it. So coming in and anchoring, my biggest concern was that it was just going to be chaos in the water with boats everywhere and lots of background noise with lights. And...
Well, as we were making our approach, as everybody started to know that we're getting to Cabo, everybody was messaging us and saying Cabo's a circus. There's going to be 150 boats that you're going to have to go through, and we're arriving at night, so we were really expecting kind of the worst, and turned out to not be that bad. But we did have it was super dark. The moon had set also, so the only light that we had was ambient light from the city, which was enough. I got on the bow, and I could see a good, 50 to 70 yards ahead of us really clearly. So Mark just crept in really, really slow. He saw a couple of boats on AIS. And do you want to talk a little bit about the AIS and anything like that?
Yeah, on that last leg coming down, Andy was on watch, and I'm sleeping, and of course we got the radios turned up, and all of a sudden I hear this loud static, and I jump up, and Andy comes down, and I think he adjusts the squelch on the radio and quiets it down.
Every channel was just screaming of static.
So we lost our antenna, and then we lost AIS. So now as we're going down the rest of the coast,
how long were we sailing without AIS? Probably close to a day.
Yeah, I'd say we did probably 150 miles without a good VHF and AIS. And incidentally, that was when we encountered the most traffic that we did on the whole passage down, hands down. Now, fishing boats usually in Mexico, that I haven't really seen them using AIS, but
so you could see a little bit of AIS when it was if a boat was really, really close to us, then we would see it. And So as we come in, we saw just a couple of boats, here in the harbor in Cabo, but we weren't sure if there was, we could see silhouettes of other boats, and we weren't sure if where they were. So that's why I was on the bow, just creeping in really, really slow, and then everything, we kind of anchored out pretty far. We were out in BFE over there, the first night.
Yeah, but I mean, we picked a spot where we knew we could anchor, that we weren't going to be near another boat, and then it was just, okay, well, let's see how far we really are away from everything when we wake up.
And
it was pretty far, but it was good.
It was a prudent decision to make. Don't try to go in close to anything. It's like we found a good spot. We dropped the hook and stood anchor watch for a minute, and then got some rest.
So we re-anchored yesterday because Andy was bored being out on the skirts here and wanted to move in closer to the action.
Well, the idea was I thought we were going to go to town and hang out and grab a couple beers and some dinner late night, but by the time we pulled the dinghy up, and it was only about 9 or something, there were no shore boats or anything, so no water taxis. So we ended up just staying here. But the idea was to move closer to make it so it wasn't a mile-long dinghy ride at night, because it was a little choppy. So by the time we had re-anchored and everything, it was all for naught. And I think it was much more calm where we were. So last night wasn't a great night of rest, but whatever.
So yesterday we went to 3 different marine and hardware stores, maybe the only main 3 in town. We went to each one twice to cobble together the parts for an emergency VHF AIS antenna that I could mount from deck. Because the other plan was to send Andy up to the top of the mast.
I was willing to do it.
Because I was convinced the problem initially was at the top of the masthead, and he's willing enough to go up to the top of the mast. We did get all the parts, and we did set up a. We installed it today. We installed one from the deck, like one of these tall whip antennas that you can see.
Like a powerboat antenna, AIS antenna, was really long ones. Anyway.
So, just as we're testing that out, I'm switching wires around, and I figure out that it was the patch cable. And when I tested the patch cable earlier, I must have been tired and didn't plug in the right cable into the right place. And I did the exact same thing multiple times. So when I checked my work,
because I'm sitting there in the galley and I'm watching Mark, and we had done all this other work on the AIS, and we plugged everything in, and we weren't getting any different results. And I was like, I know this is very basic and a silly question, but are you sure the cables are plugged into the right port on the AIS? And he looked at it and he's like, wait a second. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
We went from being able to detect to hear the Coast Guard in San Diego and Long Beach from over 300 miles?
It was close to 500 miles, honestly.
It wasn't that far.
No.
Was it?
When we finally stopped hearing Coast Guard Sector San Diego, I was in awe that it was 500 miles away.
With AIS targets out a couple hundred miles.
And we could still hear the VHF. And just real quick, we see some questions coming in. We just want to remind everybody, we're going to try to go back through the questions, so stick with us. Don't mean to ignore your questions. Just trying to get through the little itinerary we have. We've never done this before, so we're just trying to figure it out as we go.
Right.
So
what was your best moment here in Cabo?
Best moment here in Cabo was definitely lunch yesterday.
Okay.
So far. I mean, it's obviously the place, coming rounding and then waking up and seeing that we're here. It wasn't a madhouse yet. We thought it wasn't going to be crazy, and then yesterday morning 2 cruise ships pulled in, so it did become that circus that everybody claims that it is. But best moment is just getting off the boat, walking through town, seeing all the, just it's a foreign country, it's just new to you, and it's exciting, so this is kind of why we do it. We have these dreams of going to different places and seeing different things, and that's really what it is, so I was just happy to do all that.
As a general rule, and I'm borrowing this from others that I've heard, but go where the locals go, like Tacos Phoenix in Ensenada, the best fish tacos. this barrier place that we just happened to walk by. It was
Well, as we're
filled
coming in on the dinghy, I'm like, he's like, "Where do you want to have lunch?" And I'm looking at all these places overlooking the marina. I'm like, "I want to sit and look at the water and look at the marina and have a nice lunch." And then as we were walking, through town to the first stop to get some VHF equipment, we walk right past this place, and it smelled great, and all the locals were eating. And I looked at Mark, and I'm like, "That's probably the best place to eat is where the locals are eating." But
yep,
and it was.
Yeah, it was super good.
So we went back again today. So we didn't really explore too much different cuisine because it was so good that it's insane.
We should have explored somewhere else, but it was insanely good. So now we're looking at I'll say sometime starting as early as tomorrow afternoon. Going to look at the weather models again to cross the sea for the 290 nautical mile or so passage across the Sea of Cortez to La Cruz de Guanacaste near Puerto Vallarta in Banderas Bay. So excited about that. It's a little rough right now, but I think we've got a good weather window coming up, and we should have VHF and AIS working for that.
Yeah, I was gonna leave today, like I said, and go home. I had already booked a flight, and I was just really, after we went to town, I was like, man, this is so fun to be here. I don't want to just leave tomorrow immediately. So, and I called my wife, talked to her, and she's like, I can't believe you're going to leave so soon after you just got there. And once I had her approval, I'm like, all right, that's it. Canceled my flight, and I haven't booked another flight. So, and I thought it'd be a really good checkbox to cross the Sea of Cortez and also be there for Mark. There's a lot of things we've been figuring out on the boat and finding out as far as of course we know our boats because we've sailed to Catalina and done all the cruising that we've done locally as much as possible, but it's a little different here. Once you get offshore and you're, really in the shit, it's a little different. So we've been figuring out a lot of stuff at the boat and just, this and that about how to make things more efficient, safer, and better, and
even
more
just
fun.
like little things like just fine tuning how we manage crew changes. How we're changing, watch, how we're managing the watch schedule, and
reefing, how we're lashing
how we're
the
reefing.
preventers, after we're using them, how we're lashing them, just making things easier for the next time we have to use it. And I'm trying to figure out as many things as I can for Mark. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, like, hey man, you might want to think about this, and just trying to suggest anything I can to help him out to make his life easier, because I know I won't be here forever, and I'm going to go home in a few days, and I really want Mark to be safe. So I'm just trying to help out as much as I can. As far if he's got some work to get done, if I had to go to the top of the mast or whatever I got to do, I want to be there for Mark for now and help him sort out anything that needs to get sorted.
Unclog the holding tank. All right, so do we want to go ahead and rapid fire some of these answers to some of these questions?
Scroll up on yours. That way we're looking at the same stuff here. Okay, we got. Let's see.
And whatever we didn't answer, we
Again, thanks everybody for joining. This is really cool. Super fun.
All right.
Let's go here. What do we got?
Should I grab a bourbon? Yes. Eric.
Okay. Is the audio in and out for others? I don't know about that. That was a while ago anyway. Looking for questions here, guys. If you have any questions, put them at the bottom.
Drop more.
Yeah. Okay.
Does it generally feel safe? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. We've not had any bad experiences. People have been super warm and friendly here, super helpful. Obviously we kind of aren't looking for trouble to get into.
No, and it's use common sense, and I personally don't live in fear of places. As long as you're cool to the locals and you're respectful, and you shouldn't have too much to worry about, really.
Now I hear, just like a lot of other places, bring your dinghy and your outboard on deck every night. I mean, little precautions like that, but for the most part, it's everybody been really super friendly. Anchorage steps here.
There's a drop off at the beach, so you can get close enough to the beach to be in 45, or if you want to get closer,
you can get closer to the beach, but then you're close to to the beach. So here we're probably in 48 feet. We were in 45 feet when we came in, and we could have gotten in closer.
And I was telling Mark last night, like, I wanted to get even closer to the marina so the dinghy ride would be even shorter, but there is a drop off over there. So you just look at the charts and manage your anchoring, but it's fairly shallow, and there's moorings that are closer to the beach. So watch out for those. They might look like they're anchored, but there are moorings over there.
Is Captain Bunchy planning side hustle as Santa in PV?
Great
Short
question.
answer to that is yes.
Ed, how's the food in Cabo? Excellent, but we've only done one place, so I'm sure it's all great. We've had a couple suggestions on where to go from some of the locals, and we don't have really time to go see all those, but yeah, the food's great. So let's see.
We didn't see any gray whales by the way down, but someone commented about the
sailing,
the humpback whales that we saw that were breaching, which was just amazing.
Wild. I mean, I posted one on Instagram that was, the whales were really close, and right after Mark had gone downstairs to take a nap, I was on watch, and I didn't have my camera or anything, and sometimes it's just better to see these things with your eyes and not worry about trying to document it or anything, but it was literally that Nat Geo moment of a humpback whale just breaching out of the water, and it was so, I just was fantastic. Watching, it was half a mile or less in front of me, and I was just in awe, like, wow. So that was the best whale sighting I've ever seen. We got another question here. Is this the longest sailing journey for you both? 100% the longest sailing journey for me.
Not I've done the Baja Bash from Puerto Vallarta back to San Diego, so I guess technically by the time we're at Puerto Vallarta it'd be a few more miles.
Brian
headed south.
Brian Yapple, did y'all bring and take Dramamine? Yes, I asked Mark. He already had Dramamine. I was planning on bringing it, but since he had it, I didn't bring any. But what I did bring are those patches that you put behind your ear. So I did precautionary use those patches. I used them twice, especially when we started, after that first passage to Cedros. I was glad to have it. I'm sure I might have gotten fully seasick if I didn't have it. But yeah, that's what I did. There's these patches you can get.
Scopolamine.
Okay.
And I borrowed one. I broke down and borrowed one from Andy on that leg in the Bahia Santa Maria.
No ginger chews, but we did. Okay, Brian asked, or ginger chews. No ginger chews, but he's got some ginger ale. So when I started feeling a little queasy, even with the patch, I was like, I'm gonna have a glass of ginger ale. And ginger ale always seems to help me a little bit.
Andy, how long you staying on Keel Dragger?
I will be staying on Keel Dragger probably until this coming Sunday. I'm not sure exactly what date that is, but I want to make the crossing across Sea of Cortez, help Mark get there, and check that checkbox for myself, and see La Cruz, and hopefully get over to that cruisers bar and hang out with some of those cruisers.
How many beers deep into this trip?
What did we buy? A 6-pack of
I had
Pacifico?
Some on board as well.
Yeah, you had a couple Pacificos on board. Not a lot. Mark's not a heavy drinker whatsoever. I drink a lot more than Mark. But we bought a 6-pack of Pacifico and a 12-pack of Modelo, and we still have probably more than half of the Modelo.
But we did some damage on that bottle of rum.
That was it.
Getting into Turtle Bay.
Yeah, that was we did tie that one off. And I didn't know this about Mark, but he's the guy that, like, once he's like, I don't want to drink, but once you get him started, he's sitting out, he's here, give me another one. Give me another. I'm like, "Oh, okay." 4 drinks later, I'm like, he's finishing them faster than I am. I'm like, "Okay, all right, this is fun."
What spot will you break up? What spot will the breakup point be heading across the Pacific? I think so I was planning on La Cruz near Puerto Vallarta and Banderas Bay, but as Andy mentioned, like I just got kind of anxious sitting in the same spot for too long, so we might rookie numbers. We might I might go further south, so I'd like to go down the Mexican Riviera to Manzanillo, Zihuatanejo, maybe a little bit further. So. Or optionally, I could come back up into the Sea of Cortez, back up to La Paz. It's one of the great things about cruising is I've got a lot of flexibility and I can do whatever I feel like. I need to be in La Cruz for Christmas, and the week after Christmas, because I've got the Admiral and
The Admiral being his wife, Debbie.
and my son's coming down the week after that. So that's super important to me, and that's kind of like what my whole timeline revolves around, is whatever the good right weather window is to get down there and then to hang out till I get a chance to visit with them, and then after that it's kind of open for a couple of months.
So these touch and go places that, you know, we might not be staying very long in these anchorages, but it's kind of for me. Because I only had 2 weeks to be on this adventure, and I'm trying to see as much as I can. I also want to experience it and instead of just anchoring and then leaving, I'm trying to get us to get off the boat and go do a quick adventure, see the locals or whatever, and then we'll leave. But it's his moving this fast is mostly for me right now. Obviously he's got all the time in the world. So Scott Woolard, he asked, besides AIF and VHF, AIS and VHF issue, anything else break yet? Have we had anything break?
Yeah. I about took my feet off with the whisker pole. Sucker came crashing down, scared the hell out of me. So that's partly while we've been rolling, pretty deep angles, almost dead downwind. Not quite, with preventers, without any head sails pulled out, because I got to fix the fittings on the pole.
Luckily, Killdragger is such a great sailing boat that sailing with just the main, either full main or reefed main, we still get great boat speed.
Double reefed at 6 knots.
I was
surprised we were moving that fast.
How can you complain with that? But we went up to rig the pole for the head sail, and it did come down, and it missed Mark's foot by inches, and that was a deal breaker. So it was like, all right, we're not gonna mess with that.
So I'll rebuild that likely in the cruise, but I if I could get a decent deal and find one that is a lot lighter, like that sucker's really heavy, which I don't think is really great for single-handed sailing either.
Okay,
we're trying to do YouTube content on a regular,
semi-regular
basis.
My brother Rick's on here. He said,
nice.
What up? Want to say hi. Hey, Mark from Rick. Oh, cool. Wondering about the patches. Yep. Told you about that. The patches did work for me.
What?
Do you like Baja Naval? We're hauling out next month. That was from Ups.
Oh, Baja Naval. I've been going to Baja Naval. I've had boats in Southern California for the last
Eric.
8 years. 7 of the last 8. I've been to Baja Naval every year. They've always been pretty good.
I'm wearing pants, Eric. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm shorts.
I'm wearing shorts.
But Baja Naval has been good. They've been pretty good to work with. They've taken pretty good care of me and taken care of all 3 of the boats that I've had down there.
I'll answer this question. I think it's a bit of a personal question. What Brian's asking, what's your budget for this trip, if you don't mind sharing? I brought $1,000. I brought $700 in cash, and I expected to pay, heavy for my flight to go home. I prepared to pay $1,000 to go home if I had to, because I got more luggage than I should have brought. I'm always that guy that overpacks. But it appears that the flights, even at last minute, are pretty reasonable. If you don't have to check bags or anything, and trust me, you don't have to pack as much as you think. You're on a sailboat. Hygiene goes way down. You take showers every other day. You change every other day, to be honest. You're not changing every day, so don't bring clothes for every single day. It just doesn't happen. And so I prepared to pay, a lot to get home, because I knew it would be a last-minute ticket. But when I booked my ticket from here, that would be the next day, it was $417 to get home, but I canceled that. So I expect it to be right around $500 or right around that area, to get home from PV. And I haven't spent the other $700 in cash budget, not even close.
So I'll just add to Andy's. Leading up to this, I repowered, bought a new engine, put a new standing rigging, bought a new hydrovane, bought brand new sails.
Mark's been going bananas on the boat for years. Ever since I've known him, he's been going bananas on the boat.
Thanks, James.
He was basically, wow. That's cool. Right when I met him, he repowered the boat, and I'm sure that was super expensive.
So yeah, the ongoing budget.
Local
I mean,
girls.
we'll see what comes out to.
Let's see what else we got.
Oh, YouTube on a regular basis, or
yeah, we both have YouTube channels, so be sure to subscribe to Keel Dragger and Sailing Soleil. We post on a regular basis. I'll be back home representing the West Coast, doing my thing. Channel Islands are my goal. My next goals are, to get a little bit more north, Channel Islands, and also myself to make it down to Mexico. My initial goals will be on my boat, will be to get to Ensenada. I gotta take it in little short spurts. I don't have a blue water boat. I got a Catalina 30, but I've fitted out pretty good. And as long as I'm cautious and I do, I have no problem. Based on what I've done, if I probably wouldn't go as far offshore as Mark and Keel Dragger, but I would go to Isla Cedros on my boat. I haven't seen anything. It would probably take me a lot longer because I have to have a different weather window. I couldn't just go no matter what the weather was. So it'd probably take me a lot longer than him, waiting for good weather and make sure I don't have the big swell and stuff like that. But I can do everything that we've done so far, but I'd have to be a little closer to shore on my boat.
So I've got a lot of episodes coming. Like, I'm going to try and do once a week. I missed that in the last month just because I've been so super busy. I've got a lot of content, so I'll be posting regularly as I can. With a goal of once a week. We'll see. I won't have time to edit any videos, even from Ensenada till I get settled in La Cruz.
This is for you, Mark, I guess. Let's see here. Marine World Classifieds asks, best advice/tips before heading south to the Sea of Cortez.
Yeah.
Best advice.
I think... So...
Just go. Just do it.
Just think of it this way. Like if you live in Southern California, like go to the Channel Islands, go to the Northern Channel Islands, practice anchoring there. Spend a week or more.
I didn't mean that, James. I didn't mean a 30-foot boat can't go far.
Spend a week or more on your boat, and challenge yourself to go out in conditions that you wouldn't normally be comfortable in.
Yeah, that's what I need to do more often.
Get a feeling for, how are you going to hold up? Are you going to have any issues on your boat or anything like that? But then also things like, I think it was maybe Eddie that asked about power consumption. I'll tell you what I found is that my 700 watts are not producing enough for all the crap I've got turned on the boat. Refrigeration, occasionally Starlink, and everything else. So I don't know if I'm going to upgrade solar or get a generator or, just be more frugal. But it's not going as far as I was hoping it would. And that's after, kind of a few years of testing this out, with, weekend trips, lots and lots of those. But
and Mark seems to think that the dust on the panels doesn't matter as much as I do. I see it's very dusty here. It's very dusty here. When we left Ensenada, the solar panels had a lot
2 inches of dirt on them.
They were super dusty, so I sprayed them down, wiped them off, and I'm sure that helped. But from the time that we left Ensenada to now, they're already really, really dirty. So that would be something, as far as power consumption goes, just got to keep your solar panels clean, especially if they're laying flat. They're going to just catch it. The salt air kind of seems to make it stick a little bit more. So you just got to be diligent about that.
You were talking about like bathing routines and stuff, like how often you shower and that kind of stuff. We do have a luxury. I do have a water maker on board Keel Dragger, which is super nice. So we've got RO water, and we don't have any problems. If we wanted to shower daily, we could make the water to do that. It's just a question of how much.
That's a luxury.
How much battery juice do we want to burn making water versus everything else that we're doing?
I still think you should get a little Jenny. If you manage those lazarettes, you got the room to put it in there. Just get yourself a little Honda generator for those moments that you really need it, and that's probably all you'll need. But James, of course, my boat's far different than yours, and I'm just a little bit overly cautious. I'm sure my boat could do more than I do. I just seem to puss out when it comes to, if I'm heading out of the harbor and it's super windy or something, I might head back, But we know that 30-foot sailboats can go around the world like you're doing.
There's a Catalina 30 about, 150 meters from us, maybe.
Yeah.
So, like, you can do the Sea of Cortez, dude.
Yeah, I plan to. As soon as I can afford the time and my wife let me do it again, I want to head out as soon as possible and do it. My immediate goals, though, are to get further north with the Channel Islands and see what I can do there. Because I've been just going back and forth to Catalina, and it's time for me to really branch out from there and then get down to Ensenada and then just start branching out from there. But I want to do the Sea of Cortez badly after this and spend more time in each anchorage.
James, I hear you on the water maker. I'm pretty conservative on keeping the tanks pretty full. So I've got two 40-gallon tanks. So, I've got at least 40 gallons at any time. So if I need to go into conservation mode in the tanks.
You guys are ugly, but I love you both.
Nice. Is that a question?
It's not a question, it's just a comment. Just kidding. Let's see here.
But yeah, the water maker's absolutely it's a luxury, but it's great to have.
Clean. James says clean panels are crucial. Yeah, I'm sure you'd know about that. So yeah, stay on top of that. I keep telling Mark, you know what you need is this. You know what you need is to do this. He's like, dude, can you please shut up?
I'm not arguing about the clean panels, dude. But
no, that's just a segue to like I've been kind of busting your balls about little things.
Been poking holes in my shit this whole trip.
This boat is very well prepared. It's been really awesome to be on this boat. This man, Killdragger, is a tank. It's awesome. 100% about the generator. There you go.
Yep.
Bro, your boat is all good. Oh, me? Okay. Right on. Watermaker's still worth having. I think my they're not at the end. Yikes. Any particular model or manufacturer? What are we looking at here?
Is that about Brian? I don't know if that's the water maker or the boat. I have a Spectra something 150. It's a 6-gallon an hour Spectra. It came with the boat. I didn't buy it, and it's it's worked well. I've had other issues, with plumbing, like with little air leaks and and things like that I've had to fix. But so far it's worked really well. I bought a spare membrane and all that stuff, and I haven't had to use it.
So as far as water makers go, I know it'd be kind of overkill on a Catalina 30, but I was lucky enough that I bought a water maker at Minnie's Yacht Surplus in Newport Beach. They thought it was a water heater, and they sold me the water maker for $250. I haven't used it yet. I haven't even tested it. But even if I had to replace the motor, the whole thing is there. It's a pure, like a Katadyn 80. It takes two of the shorter membranes. I've already purchased the membranes. They're still in their bags. I've purchased the chemicals for the pickling and all that stuff. But after this trip, because my tankage is a fraction of what Mark has, I feel like that would be pretty crucial for me if I was to do it. Otherwise, and everything, it would just be a luxury and convenience. I'd have to find a place to put it, but I kind of want to start tinkering with that at some point and see if I could find a place to put it on my boat. Even if it's just in a suitcase and then I set it up, use it, and put it away. But I do have a water maker that I haven't used yet. Thanks,
Marine World Classifieds. Appreciate your support.
That's cool.
Thank you. It's awesome. What else? So I know we're kind of up on the hour. Any other last second questions or closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. Nah, man. Let's get a good night rest. Check the models tomorrow and head out. I'm ready for that next leg. Now that we're doing all this.
So I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of our Best Coast Captain's Hour. Next month, January, Andy's going to host it on Sailing Soleil.
Yep. Be sure to subscribe.
So if you're not subscribe to Andy's channel as well.
We'll put links for both of our channels in the description of this video. I'm not sure if we did it yet, but just come back, check the description of this video. We'll make sure we have links to both of them to subscribe. And so it'll be kind of interesting how that one's going to work, because I'll be on my boat in Long Beach and Mark will be on his boat in the middle of the ocean somewhere.
We'll see.
Or we'll see how that goes. So Mark's a little bit more savvy with how the live stream works, but he's got this software that that we should be able to do it. So we'll be in 2 different locations doing the same thing that we're doing. Some sort of split screen. We'll figure it out. But yeah, every other month we'll go on each other's channels, just trying to help each other out, and really trying to bring in the sailing community. If you ask me, if you're watching this and you're local, you're a West Coast sailor, you have a story, and honestly, I don't care how small or big your story is. We would love to have interview you at some point, and we just want to include everybody, really. If you're into sailing, then we're into the same thing, and we just kind of want to keep just kind of grow the West Coast thing. There, we just feel like we have a cool group of sailors, a lot of good people, and just a strong little community. So just trying to support it and help everybody do their thing, inspire, and do whatever we can. James, he's been in the chat, and
sailing Tritea.
He was one of my biggest inspirations, to even buy a boat and all that stuff. And here I am in Cabo San Lucas, 700, 800, 900 nautical miles away from home, about to go even further. And he's halfway around the world now. So thank you, James. Thanks for the inspiration. But that's the same thing we're just trying to do, is just share what we're doing. And so we're going to do this little captain's hour thing and see how it goes.
All right.
Any last questions here? Buenos noches, amigos. Great to hear about y'all's experience. Thanks, James. Okay. All right, guys. I think we're going to sign off. Let's do a final cheers.
All right.
We got a drink. Let's
cheers.
Cheers,
Buenos
everybody.
noches.
Buenos noches. And West Coast sailors. The best coast sailors.
Best Coast sailors.